Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's session, we will look at some scenario-based interview questions as part of your Route 53 service. Now, Route 53 service is the DNS service that we have in AWS, and again, this is a very commonly used service that you have in AWS, so you can expect a few questions from this particular service, especially scenario-based questions if you are an experienced candidate. Once again, before I start off with the session, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So the first question we have is, you need to configure a website to be highly available across multiple AWS regions. How would you use Route 53 to achieve this? So basically, you will need to make your application highly available. So for this, you can set up latency based routing and set up health checks. Then you will need to deploy your application across multiple AWS regions, and each of this region will have an endpoint with a record in Route 53. And then you will be enabling latency based routing in Route 53, which will direct the users to the region that provides the lowest latency. So latency based routing, the whole point of that is to basically route your users to the region that provides you the lowest latency. So let's say you have North Virginia and you have Oregon. So whichever region gives the lowest latency, the traffic will be routed to that region. Now, additionally, you can also configure health checks for this routing, which will monitor the health of each of your endpoint. That way, your traffic is always sent to the healthy endpoints. So at any point, if any of your endpoint becomes unhealthy, then Route 53 will redirect the traffic to your healthy endpoints, which can be running in a different region. So that's how you can make your application highly available by deploying your application across multiple regions. The next question we have is, your company's website has both static and dynamic content. How would you use Route 53 to direct traffic to these different types of content? So for this, you will be using a combination of alias records in Route 53. So alias records is one option that you can make use of. So for your static content that you have, you can make use of Amazon S3 buckets or CloudFront distribution, and you will be creating these alias records pointing to this S3 bucket or your CloudFront distribution for basically your static assets. And for your dynamic content, you will be hosting them on an EC2 instance or behind a load balancer, and then you will be creating a separate alias records for this ALB or EC2 instance in your Route 53. And this approach will help you to optimize routing of your static content as well as your dynamic content. So for your static content, you can make use of your S3 buckets or CloudFront, and for your dynamic content, you can make use of your load balancer or your EC2 instances, and then you'll be creating the alias records for the respective contents. The next question we have is, a client needs a backup website in case the primary site goes down. How would you configure Route 53 to fail over to the backup website? So for this, you can make use of your failover routing policy that you have in Route 53. So basically with this, you will be having two websites. You will be creating two records. So a primary record which will be pointing to your primary website, and a secondary record which will be pointing to your secondary website. And then both of these records, you will be enabling health checks, and your Route 53 will continuously monitor the health checks of this two records. If the health of your primary site fails, it will automatically fail over to your backup website until your primary site becomes healthy again. So that way you can make sure that your application is always up, and any issue that happens, your Route 53 will take care of automatically failing over to your standby application. That way your users can continue accessing your application. And then you can go and troubleshoot as to what happened with the primary website, fix it, and then once it becomes healthy, the traffic will start flowing to that primary website. The next question we have is, you need to reduce latency for users around the world by directing them to the nearest AWS region. How would you configure Route 53? So For this, we can make use of your geolocation routing policy. So that's another routing policy that you have. Now with this, you will be basically directing the users to the nearest AWS region based on the geographic location of the users. So like if your users are in, let's say, India, then your traffic will go to the Mumbai region. So for each AWS region where your application is deployed, you will be creating a separate record in Route 53, and then you will configure it to use the geolocation routing with the corresponding geographic location. Now, this setup will help you to reduce the latency by directing users to the closest region. So, depending on the location of the users, the traffic will be directed to the respective region so that the latency is much lesser. The next question we have is your domain has multiple subdomains and you need to manage DNS for each independently. What's the best way to set this up in Route 53? So if you're having multiple subdomains and if you want to manage them independently, then you can create delegated subdomains. So with this, you will be basically creating a hosted zone in your Route 53 for each of your subdomain. And then you'll be creating the respective NS records in the main domains hosted zone. And that will be delegating the authority to the respective subdomains. Now, this will allow each subdomain to have its own DNS settings, and updates can be managed independently without affecting the primary domain. So basically, you will have hosted zones, the respective name servers, and you will be delegating the authority to your subdomains as well. The next question we have is a client wants to block traffic from specific countries. Can Route 53 help achieve this? And if so, how? Now, Route 53 does not directly support blocking of traffic from any countries. However, you can make use of your geolocation routing policy in combination with AWS WAF. Now, WAF, it stands for Web Application Firewall, and we can use this to block traffic from your chosen countries. Now, that can be a solution. So you will be configuring your Route 53 to direct the traffic based on your geographic locations, and you'll be setting up your WAF rules to block any countries or basically allow requests from specific countries at the application layer. Now, AWS WAF can then be attached to your CloudFront distribution or your load balancer depending on where your application is running. So Route 53 does not directly support it, but then we can make use of your WAF rules to control which countries traffic you want to allow or you don't want to allow. The next question we have is you have multiple services under the same domain and each service is hosted in a different AWS region. How would you route traffic to the correct service based on the user's location? So in this case, we can make use of your multi-value answer routing along with geolocation routing policies or latency-based routing policies. Now, each of the service which is running in different region will have its own record in Route 53. Like let's say one record for EC2 instance, one record for S3 bucket, one record for CloudFront, and then so on. Now, the multi-value answer routing would allow Route 53 to return multiple records for the same domain name, and you can configure these records with either geolocation or latency-based routing, and this will ensure that users are directed to the correct service based on the location or based on the performance. So we can make use of your multi-value answer along with your geolocation or latency based routing for this. The next question we have is how would you configure Route 53 to handle DNS failover for a hybrid architecture with both on-premises and cloud resources? So to configure your DNS failover when you have a hybrid setup, we can make use of your Route 53 health checks along with your failover routing policy. So failover is what we can use to handle that failing of your resources. So you can configure Route 53 with records for both your on-premises resources as well as your cloud resources. And then you will be setting up your on-premises environment as your primary environment. Now, Route 53 will continuously monitor the health of your primary on-premises resources. So, we'll be creating a health check. In case your on-premise resources goes down, Route 53 will automatically fail over to the resources which are running in AWS, and this will ensure continuity of your services. Your application will continue running without any downtime. The next question we have is: a website serves content to both AUS and EU users, and each region requires a specific version of the site. How would you configure Route 53 for this? So again, when we are talking about region specific content, then we can make use of your geolocation routing in Route 53. So you'll be creating one record for the US version of the website, which is targeting the US users. You'll be creating one more record for the EU version of the website, and this will be targeting the European countries. This configuration which will route traffic based on the correct version of the website based on the user's location, and this will ensure they are region specific content only. So if the request is originating from US, the traffic will be directed to the US version of the website, and if the traffic is coming from the EU, the traffic will be directed to the EU version of the website. The next question we have is: you're running a web application with spiky traffic and you need DNS to support load balancing across multiple endpoints. How would you configure Route 53? So for load balancing any spiky traffic, we can make use of weighted routing policy in Route 53. So you will again set up multiple records for this, and you'll be defining the weightage to distribute the traffic across various endpoints. And you can also adjust this weights based on the capacity of each endpoint. Like let's say you have 2 endpoints or 3 endpoints, so you can have 30% going to one endpoint, and then 30% going to one endpoint, and the rest 40% going to another endpoint. Additionally, you can also enable multi-value answer routing if you want Route 53 to provide multiple healthy endpoint IP addresses for redundancy, and this will allow the client to try alternative endpoints if one becomes unreachable. So basically, you'll have to make use of your weighted routing policies for this. And that brings us to the end of our scenario-based interview questions for AWS Route 53. Again, this is a very commonly used service, and you can definitely expect questions from this particular service. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and please share your feedback in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.